So let me share one more image. So this is the one that I used for the symbolism of the burning bush article on the Symbolic World blog.
Mm.
And it just really fascinates me because you have the Theotokos as the burning bush on Mount Sinai, and Moses at different stages in his Exodus story.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's really, it's again, it's like for a modern linear time thinker, it's like so confusing because you have three Moseses, like
Yeah.
at different stages of his story within the Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy storyline. And then you have the Mother of God in, the Gospels times, right? And then she's on Mount Sinai during Moses. And so it's like, oh my goodness, like what's happening here?
Yeah. And there's even more than that that's going on, by the way, that maybe you won't realize, but there's also a cave. Did you see the cave?
Oh yeah.
Little cave next to Moses. And so that's also part of bringing a lot of this stuff together, you could say. And it's important also that in this version that they show the sheep and the waters that are down there below as well.
Uh-huh.
And so this image is very powerful because it's trying to bring together the different elements of the mountain. It is again like a very much a cosmic image, which is showing you the basic pattern of reality, using the story of Moses to do so, and then showing you different aspects of what's going on. So you can see the three moments of Moses. One is he is seeing the vision of the burning bush. The other is he's removing his sandals. And then the third is he's receiving the law from God. So those, like you said, those moments are not at all at the same time. Right? Moses sees the burning bush before, before
like Exodus 3,
before he goes to Egypt and then, brings the people out of Egypt. And so you think, like, what is the relationship between the two? And you could say that it's a repetition of these different instances of trying to tell you what this is about, but just is showing you like how at the different moments these are the same types of things that are going on, so you can understand what is ultimately happening. And that's why, and then the image of the Mother of God herself within the burning bush is kind of the culmination of what is going on. So you have the Mother of God as the mountain, you could say, the Mother of God as the throne, the Mother of God as the bush that doesn't burn, the support, all of that. And then you have the revelation, which happens in the midst of that. So you have Christ, which is revealing the logos in the mother, just like Christ was born in the dark cave, which is honestly why I think the cave is there. It's to refer to the nativity, actually. And then that like revelation is ultimately, so what do you need for you to access that revelation? You need to remove your garments of skin. You need to remove your sandals. You need, and her there at the top, she's also the altar in the church. She's also the Holy of Holies of the tabernacle. All of these images are coming together into one. She is the pattern of the tabernacle. She is the space in which the glory of God descends. She is the holiest place in the church as well. So this image is all bringing that all together. And that is where the law comes from. So at the top of the mountain, Moses receives the law and then brings it down to the bottom of the mountain. And so he removes his sandals to go up the mountain. He comes back down the mountain with a veil on his face. So he removes the veil to go up, he puts on a veil to come down. And though these are the different levels of veils in the temple, they're the different embodiments of the law, but they're also ultimately something like the very body of Christ. They're all the saints, all the St. Gregory of Nyssa, when he talks about the pillar, the pattern of the tabernacle that Moses gets in his insight, in his vision. He says the pillars of the pillars in the tabernacle are the saints, and the different elements of the tabernacle, they're people. Like he's saying, ultimately what they are is they're people. Like, of course, in the small instantiation you see in Israel, they're object, but ultimately they are the very body of Christ. So you can understand all of that being kind of brought together into one image, where it's there to, it is like, like we were talking about, something like a little, in trying to initiate you into the language of angels, where you're able to see across the Bible from the Old Testament into the church, as how all of these are connected together and manifesting the pattern of the incarnation from the time of Moses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like it's more like a telos of understanding time teleologically, whereas if you just think of it like as a hero's journey of one thing leading to the next, very linear. Not to say that the hero's journey as a plot outline doesn't have its utility or it's effective or it's has its place, but this is just a different way to me of being able to present reality in a way that's not really concerned with linear sequence, and that just fascinates me. You know, and it
It's
also
concerned to a certain extent. Like, it's not completely, it won't show, I mean, it is, there's the contain, it's not fully wild. Like, it still has a certain frame, and that frame can slip and refer, but it still holds to a certain extent. So like, you wouldn't, how can I say this? You wouldn't have, let's say, the mountain of Sinai with Moses receiving the law and the burning bush, and then like have an image of the New Jerusalem. Then it would just, it would be too much. Like, it would be too big. Although that the symbolism would not be inappropriate, it would actually be quite appropriate. But so it's not complete, doesn't completely shatter time, but it helps you see how, that instances of time can be brought together towards the telos the way that you're saying, and that you can experience that and you can see it even in the manner in which we construct stories. So doing it in space makes you see how the different elements in the frame story are actually moving towards the telos. If you bring them together and you show them geometrically as related to each other, or you show some things below, some things above, some things to the sides, you can help people see how that's what's going on in the story too. Right? The story is doing that. When Moses, there's a reason why Moses goes up the mountain to encounter the burning bush, and then goes up the mountain to receive the law. It's like, that's actually there in the story. You might not see it because you forgot, and you're too much in this part of the story. But when I bring it together, then I can show you.
That's so cool.
I mean, you can do it differently too. Like Saint Ephrem the Syrian does it in his poetry in ways that are just astounding. Where like in a little stanza, he'll within one sentence, like, just one phrase, he'll join two images and then two other images, and by the time you finish the stanza, you've gone from Genesis to Revelation, and it's all been brought together into one image.
Wow. Yeah. And I think about just like practically the Christian life is so informed by the future. It's like eschatological. It's like the things that we do in the present are shaped by or expressed by things that have happened in the past, older stories. But then our aim is future. It's the second arrival of Christ and what that will bring and the age to come. And so it's like we're doing things within the context of the future while expressing things even with past stories. So it's just interesting how even in the scriptures, it talks about the way it talks about, say, Passover, right? It's like, remember when we were in Egypt? It's like, okay, you mean when those people, our family members, were in Egypt? It's like, no, remember when we were? And it's like, okay, so we're remembering the past and we're also somehow remembering the future.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But it's also important to understand that it's not the future in a general sense. That is, it is the future in the sense in which the future will accumulate all the. So it's like you're in. So it's someone like you're on the path towards something, and then you know that you built on these things that you're moving, but then because you're moving in a direction, you know that the finality of that gathering will happen at the end, right? So you're gathering elements into a story while you're in the story, but because you know you're moving in a direction, you also know that that will continue to gather until you reach the telos of the thing you're part of. And so that's what eschatology is. That is, the future is not just any future. It is the future in which the totality of the elements will be brought together into their telos. And we know that that happens because it happens all the time, right? It's like you're doing anything you're doing. It's like I don't know, you decide to go to the store. Well, before you're going to the store, you know you're going to get things, you know you're going to come back. And so, but you know that the finality of how that's all going to come together will only manifest once you've finished, once you've come back from the store and put the groceries on the table. And so, but you can see it as you're going towards the store. You can sense it. You know it. You don't know totally what's going to happen, but you can it's coming together as you're experiencing it. And that's what eschatology is, but for a cosmic scale.
Yeah,
it's not
like how St. Paul says that. He says, like, we can see dimly. It's like we can imagine or see even dimly the future, I guess you could say, or but then we'll see clearly, one day.
Yeah, and that's fractally true. It's like, you've got the basketball, you're going up for a layup. I mean, you can see dimly what's going to happen, but you as you're doing it, as you're coming up for the layup, you can perceive it like as a vague thing that you're moving into, and it's right, and it's happening. And then once it's finished, then it's like, boom, it all has come together, and now you've seen it in its totality, right? And then you have this, and so it's like that for all things. We always experience the world that way. And what St. Paul is saying is basically there's a giant version of that. There's a giant version in which this movement we're moving towards a telos, and we can see it. We can kind of know that that's what we need to move towards. We can see dimly the forms taking shape as we're coming into them, but that we know, because we've seen it and we've experienced it nonstop, that in some point, all of this is going to come together, and that we're going to see the whole thing in its clarity.